You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned.
Don't you hate it when that happens to you? When it does, you need this, and this, and this. When it happens to me, I always know where to go. When you've got professionals on your side, your problems don't stand a chance. What are you waiting for? Contact them today and let them take care of your problems.
You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned.
hate it when that happens to you? When it does, you need this and this and this. When it happens to me, I always know where to go. When you've got professionals on your side, your problems don't stand a chance. What are you waiting for? Contact them today and let them take care of your problems. Don't you hate it when that happens to you? When it does, you need this and this and this. When it happens to me, I always know where to go. When you've got professionals on your side, your problems don't stand a chance. What are you waiting for? Contact them today and let them take care of your problems. Don't you hate it when that happens to you? When it does, you need this and this and this. When it happens to me, I always know where to go. When you've got professionals on your side, your problems don't stand a chance. What are you waiting for? Contact them today and let them take care of your problems.
He's a columnist, but he writes for Lincoln Journal Star. Mr. Gana is a licensed financial professional. So that means he is a specialist when it comes to financial planning, investment, insurance, and index assets. Lest I forget, Mr. Gana is also an activist. And he is an Ambazonian. I have to underline that, an Ambazonian. Mr. Gana is a father with 4 children, beautiful children, smart and intelligent. I'm your host tonight. My name is Chukwusom Iheme from African Community Radio and TV. We are going to discuss Ambazonia. We want our children and our viewers to know about Ambazonia. Mr. Gana, let me start from you. What does Ambazonia mean to you? As I don't want to be offensive. I don't want to use as a Cameroonian. I want to use the word as an Ambazonian. What does it mean to you, and why are you in this struggle?
I'm in this struggle because something happened to Africa over 100 years ago, coming from 1884 at the conference in Berlin, when Africa was colonized and partitioned. Following the colonization and annexation of Africa, Africa got out of that. And the settlements within the various countries in Africa, from the late 50s coming onto the 60s, left Ambazonia as an independent territory in international law. Ambazonia is also called the erstwhile territory of the British Southern Cameroons. And all the African colonies and territories coming from 1884 through the First and Second World War down to the 50s have been decolonized. The only territory in Africa that has not yet been decolonized is Ambazonia, or the British Southern Cameroons.
Will you explain further to us on that? What do you mean by decolonized?
Decolonized means that Africans were being governed. The various African countries as we know today, or territories, were being governed under colonial rule, where it was an inhumane, unacceptable, and barbaric imposition of the rule of foreigners, principally Western Europeans, on Africa, where they came, and as from the Berlin Conference in 1884, under Otto von Bismarck, partitioned Africa into territories and colonies here. So Africans became attached as subjects to these powers in Europe. But following the end of the Second World War, when Europe fought against itself and was severely weakened, all the territories, not just in Africa, but around the world. You have to remember that almost the whole world was being blanketed by colonialism from the West. Even India, Pakistan, South American countries, and African countries as well. So African countries began fighting for independence. You remember liberation struggles such as the Mau Mau in Kenya, where they fought against the British to achieve their independence. You remember liberation struggles in Nigeria, where they fought against the French to achieve their independence. Some of that independence came through peacefully, some of it came through by military conflict. And in Cameroon, especially in French Cameroon, independence of French Cameroon came through what they call the Maquisard Wars, where they fought against the French, and eventually Cameroon attained its independence. France handed its sort of pseudo-independence to French Cameroon. Now, the Treaty of Versailles that ended the First World War led to Germany being disenfranchised of its territories, led to Germany having its territories in Africa, its territories and colonies taken away. The German colonies in Africa were Togoland, German Cameroon, Tanzania, and Southwest Africa, which is current-day Namibia. So all of those territories were taken from Germany, and Togo, part of Togo went to Britain, part of Togo went to France, part of Tanzania went to England, Southwest Africa, current-day Namibia, was annexed to South Africa, and Cameroon was partitioned as two Class B trust territories. One of it came under British trusteeship, and part of it became under French trusteeship. Now, part of the German Cameroon was also carved out, some of it annexed to Central Africa, some of it annexed to Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and so the German Cameroon no longer exists. So these two territories, French Cameroon and British Cameroon, existed as two Class B trust territories recognizable under international law. So as an Ambazonian, I am an indigene from the British Cameroons, whose rights as a citizen have not yet been given, whose rights under the decolonization process, under specific UN resolutions, such as UN Resolution 1514 XV, that came out of the United Nations on December 14, 1960, asking that all colonial countries and territories be given independence, such as UN Resolution 1608, that specifically address the British Southern Cameroons and their path to independence. Those have not yet been settled as it concerns Ambazonia. So that's why I say Ambazonia is the last African territory or colony that has not yet been decolonized, and is currently being annexed by French Cameroon and France. It's being annexed by France using French Cameroon as a proxy.
Now, I know there has been some, will I use the word skirmishes between the Ambazonian and the Cameroonian forces. And there have been some human rights violations, especially from the part of the Cameroonian forces. Can you give us a highlight? I just need an example of one human rights violation, maybe in recent years, from these forces, because we are talking about indigenous people that are being killed. I think the best word would be genocide, if I'm right.
Correct.
Genocide is being committed. Can you throw more light so that our viewers will see what is going on, understand why you want a country of your own, where your rights will be protected?
Yes, genocide is occurring within the Southern Cameroons. Now, the dehumanization of the Ambazonians has been occurring since 1961, but it came to a head in 2017, where over 40,000 Ambazonians, men, women, crippled, old children, have been mercilessly slaughtered. I would say by France, because France is using French Cameroon as a proxy. The United States is aware of this, and there have been two resolutions passed in the United States Congress and Senate regarding Ambazonia and French Cameroon, recognizing the two parties as legal entities in international law and asking for this conflict to be settled on the negotiation table. I might also want to state that the international community, endorsed by the United States, the UN, the EU, Germany, have already appointed an international mediator, the Swiss. And the name of the mediator that the Swiss have appointed is Gana, to mediate on this conflict, because it recognizes the two parties as two parties in international law. Ambazonians are on the negotiation table, they call it the Swiss talks, but French Cameroon is refusing to come to the negotiation table to stop this madness of slaughter and genocide that is going on, to stem the killing of Ambazonians. And it's not just the killing of Ambazonians, it's the burning of villages, the slaughtering of cattle, the destruction of live crops, deprivation of Ambazonian kids from going to school. This can be compared directly to what is happening in Ukraine, where Russia has invaded an independent country and a member of the United Nations and is claiming Ukraine as part of its territory. If you take Russia in Ukraine and you take France in Ambazonia, there is absolutely no difference. Both of them are a violation of international law and genocide against a people.
Then why is the world so much vocal on Ukraine than what is happening back in Africa? We have the Biafra struggle, for instance. We have the Ambazonia struggle as another example. Why is the Western media not focusing on all this?
I would have to say there are certain things you would have to consider. One, I would have to say Europe suffered a lot in wars. I mean, Europe fought a lot of wars. We've read about the Napoleonic Wars, where Napoleon terrorized the whole of Europe, creating the continental system, invade. A lot of people died. First World War, Germany rising from having become a nation from Prussia, amalgamating the other territories and becoming a power and terrorizing Europe. Millions of people died. Second World War, again, Hitler rising, starting a war by invading other countries, including Czechoslovakia, and leading to 50 million people being killed. So Europe has learned suffering that has come from war. And Europe has grown to learn that it is not good for a land war to start and spread in Europe. So whenever a land war starts in Europe, the Western powers are very quick to go in there and snuff it out. The Western powers are very quick to put their feet down on the principle that aggression, whether it's Hitler aggressing Poland, whether it's Putin aggressing Ukraine, aggression should not be rewarded. But when it comes to non-white people, this same principle does not exist. There's an article I wrote in 1995 in the Lincoln Journal-Star that says, the Western world seems to have mischaracterized the optimum level of capitalism and democracy as to be when it is concentrated in the West and the democratic West. So the West can live in democracy, they can live with the rule of law, but when it comes to other peoples, the jungle rule can exist. And when I wrote that article in 1995, and I sent you a copy of that article, I was writing that article with forethought to what is happening in Ukraine. Because they say, injustice anywhere is what?
Injustice everywhere.
There you go. So if you let undemocratic rule, if you let dictatorship, if you let corruption, and if you help to patronize this corruption in the third world, and you think that is going to be something that is going to be relegated to the third world, you are breeding the mindset of aggression by one power against a people, which has cropped up where? In Europe, where we are having the first land war since the Second World War. You have to also throw back to what happened in Yugoslavia in 1995, where Serbia decided to insist on holding those nations there captive. Bosnia, Montenegro, Croatia, where Milosevic tried to keep those independent peoples through military force. What did the West do? They got in there quickly and they stamped it out because they did not want that land war to spread in Europe. But what happens in Africa, like in Ambazonia? They allow that injustice. They allow France coming in to violate international treaties, to violate the sovereign rights of the people of Ambazonia, where over 40,000 of them have died since 2017. This is an aberration in international law.
Okay, what is the interest of France? Is it economical or political in Ambazonia? Can you throw light on that for me?
There was a famous thinker in Africa that says, African resources are both a blessing and a curse. Wherever you find African resources, you find the appetite for conflict. Wherever you find African resources, you find the invitation of predators. In French Cameroon, they have resources. But in Ambazonia has oil and a lot of other resources. And France is bent on keeping Ambazonia so that French companies like ERF can continue to exploit that oil. Not just that they want to exploit that oil, they want to exploit that oil at conditions that are very disadvantageous to the African, at conditions that make this oil be sold at prices that are way below market level. And by coming in and support French Cameroon, that's why I say French Cameroon is just a proxy of France. To annex Ambazonia, France can maintain that stranglehold and continue to exploit oil from the Saudi Cameroons and get away with murder.
Okay, I will ask you this question. Has there been any attempt by the Ambazonian leaders to involve the Western media?
Yes, there have been several attempts. We have written to Western houses, we've written to CNN, we've demonstrated in front of CNN, we've demonstrated in front of BBC. We have networked and canvassed the world. We have met United States senators, we have met United States congressmen. I have gone to the office of the senators here, Senator Roberts, the congressmen in this jurisdiction have flown to Washington, D.C. We as a people have canvassed the Senate offices. We have really sensitized not just the Western media houses, but the Western political systems as to what is happening. And they know what is happening, but it is just not a priority to them. In fact, I'm going to tell you this. In 2019, I had a meeting with Senator Dick Durbin in Illinois, where Ambazonians invited, had a goodwill, and I want to thank Senator Dick Durbin for having done that. And I presented the case of Ambazonia to him. I printed all of these UN resolutions, and as I was speaking, I handed them to him. And I gave him examples. He said, Valentine, don't forget, when 1 million Tutsis and Hutus were being killed in 1995, the United States was intervening in Yugoslavia to stamp out the conflict there. So those two conflicts were occurring at the same time, but while they were curing the situation in Yugoslavia, they allowed the situation in Rwanda, Burundi to deteriorate to the casualty, to the deaths of over or close to 1 million Tutsis and Hutus. That is an aberration and a violation of humanity.
So I have a reason why I ask this question, because it's like the West has no particular interest when it comes to conflict in Africa. That was why I asked that question. I want to ask you another question, and that will be back to people on the ground, and I call it on the is that zero?
Ground zero.
Ground zero.
Home front.
Home front.
Yes.
What is the pulse back home? Are they in support of this liberation struggle, or are there some people against the struggle?
They are preponderantly, a substantial majority of our people are in support. I communicate with them. I stay in touch with them. You cannot be, or they cannot be affixing you to part of a country that you do not belong. They cannot be affixing you to part of the country where you have but second class or third class rights. It cannot sustain itself. So our people are hungry for the restoration of our statehood and our sovereignty. And our statehood goes back to 1954, where we had the first elections, the first democratic elections to ever occur on the African continent, occurred in Ambazonia. Then it was called the British Southern Cameroons, where we had a multi-party election where the party of Dr. E.M.L. Endeli won, and he became the first prime minister of the Southern Cameroon. Became the prime minister. And in 4 years later, we had an election again where the parties contested, and John Gu Foncha won and became the prime minister. But we were still under trusteeship with the British. So coming into 1959, 1960, where African countries were receiving independence, instead of Ambazonia being given its independence by the guardian trustee, England, England sort of did a lot, England and France sort of did a lot of schemes behind the scene to have Ambazonians go vote in a plebiscite if they wanted to become part of Nigeria or become part of French Cameroon. Instead of giving them their independence, consistent with UN Resolution 1514 XV, which said, give independence to all colonial countries and territories, irrespective of their political preparedness. So it was a violation of international law that is blowing up now as a conflict between Ambazonia and French Cameroon.
Okay. One more question. The question is this. Some years ago,
Yes.
we have Ambazonian leaders that came to Nigeria and they were forcefully renditioned back to Cameroon to face trial. Can you throw more light on that in a few minutes?
Yes. Ambazonian leaders, this was in 2018, specifically on January 5th, 2018, where a coalition between the Cameroon security services, maybe with the coalition of France, abducted these leaders, including Julius Ayutabe, Sezeku Fongala 4, who we call, another one called Pat Tasang, and a host of them, 12 of them were abducted. And you see, they thought that the abduction of these leaders was going to end the struggle. But this is something that is coming from the people. There's a hunger to have their statehood withdrawn. And they were illegally taken across international borders, against international norms, against established international rules from Nigeria to Cameroon.
Okay,
and they were kept in dungeons in Cameroon for about 9 months, where Ambazonians did not even know where they were. Let me give you an example. I want to give you a little corollary, a little example of I think it was under the rule of one of the Nigerian military leaders. I cannot remember the name specifically, but they tried to abduct Umar Diko.
Yeah, he's a president. Who is in?
They tried to abduct Umar Diko. Buhari. They tried to abduct Umar Diko from England to Nigeria, and the British Customs stopped it because it was illegal under international law, despite the fact that it was alleged that Umar Diko had stole so many billions from the Nigerian treasury.
Okay, I'll stop you there for a second, just for commercial break. Then we'll get back to you on this same question of extraordinary rendition. We're going to talk more about that. We'll break for commercial.
Thank you.
Where we stopped.
Yes.
I want you to run it up in 1 minute, just on that thought. I didn't want you to lose the thought on where we stopped.
Yes, I was just explaining how the Ambazonia has been truncated because French Cameroon and France have tried to erase our culture, to erase our dignity, to erase our educational system. I, for one, I was locked up in 1985 for over 2 months in detention for rising up to protest against French Cameroon trying to change our system of education, where instead of writing the GCE A level and O level, they wanted to come into our territory and impose so that we would be writing the French probatoire on the back, which is a more inferior educational system to the British educational system. So they've tried to truncate, erase our culture, and this conflict started when they went even further now in 2013, going upwards, and started bringing judges trained in civil law to come administer courts in Ambazonia that were based on the common law system. Judges who spoke just French to come and be adjudicating cases in Ambazonia where the lawyers and the litigants spoke English. How can you impose that on the people? How can you bring Mexican judges speaking Spanish to come rule in courts in Ambazonia where the litigants are speaking, the litigants and the lawyers are speaking English? It's a known status. It's dealt with. They're on arrival. How can you bring teachers from French Cameroon speaking French to come impose them to be teaching kids in Ambazonia who, from their homes, from their primary schools, are speaking English. So attempts to eradicate our culture, eradicate our language, eradicate our identity. And when that did not succeed, now we have the wholesale killing of our people, where over 40,000 have died. If that is not genocide, I don't know what genocide is.
Okay. One more question. I think I did ask you the economic benefit from the relation between IPOB
Yes.
and the Ambazonian.
Yes.
So what, just in 30 seconds, the advantage that you think will come out from this? You talk about the refugee crisis, the eastern part of Nigeria,
Correct.
helping in addressing some of them, taking in southern Ambazonian that were
Yes.
fleeing for their lives.
Correct.
So what other economic benefit do you think can come, or any other benefit that you think can come from this relationship?
I think the other marginal strategic importance that it can be is to highlight the fact that if you allow injustice to fester, whether it's in the southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonia, or in the eastern part of Nigeria where the Igbos and the Easterners are very disenfranchised, that is a whole area that dovetails into the Gulf of Guinea. And we're talking about trade between the West and the East, and ships traversing that area. If that area continues to degenerate and result into full-flung warfare, it threatens not just that geopolitical Gulf of Guinea, but it threatens international trade between the East and the West. So that is something that the international community needs to watch out and promote the resolution of these conflicts in a peaceful way.
Okay, let me ask you. I know I have, my sponsors are telling me that my time is almost up. What are cultural ties that exist? What are the cultural ties that exist between the Ambazonians and the eastern part of Nigeria, where the Calabar and all those areas, Bakassi and all? What are there any cultural ties, language similarities, and and all those kind of? Is there any? When
the colonialists came, they draw boundaries arbitrarily between people. If you look at the eastern border of Nigeria and the western border of Ambazonia, for example, you go to around the Manfe area, if you're moving towards Eko, the ethnic people of Nigeria and the ethnic people of Ambazonia are one and the same. If you look at their traditional dances, if you look at their culture, if you look at the kind of foods they eat, we are one and the same. In Nigeria, you eat what we call calabar yam. We treasure that in Ambazonia. When you guys fry plantains and eat with what
You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amber TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned.